So Dr. Brian and I decided this morning for our first mastermind call of 2025, we are going to go over some basic stat management. And what we're going to do is try to make this as simple as possible for you guys. And really, here's the big thing is that if you're on a mission to grow and really a mission to transform lives, keeping your stats is absolutely vital to know exactly where you are and where you're going and to manage the people that are coming in. It's like there's a biblical verse that talks about the shepherd going after the one lost sheep. All of the flock were there, the thousands of sheep were there, but there was the one lost sheep that the shepherd went off. And I believe it was David going off to kill the lion and kill the bear. Anyway, but here's the thing is that we have to almost look at it that way, is that we have to be cognizant of every single new patient that comes in. So I know Dr. Brian's going to go over some stats this morning to help you guys out as far as what they keep in their office. And I've got a couple of real nice gifts for you guys at the end of the call. I will share on a screen share here.
Yeah, and so with this is also what getting good at this is what allowed me, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 years ago to go to a really more team-driven office. Because I'm not responsible, I'm only responsible for one of the 5 departments in the office. So it's understanding the numbers to look at. This is a mastermind, so please, if you got something to add, if you got questions about it, if you have other ideas and departments as to what are metrics that should be tracked or questions if something applies there, please ask. Because this is what A gives you a good idea as to how the business is doing, but also really allows you to move more into your gifting, your sweet spot, what you're designed to do, and not have to track all the stats or be responsible for all of the outcomes. So, um, I am technologically challenged. I'm going to see if I can share that up there. That's
Yep,
Excel
we can
sheet.
see your screen. Yes.
Okay. Um, yeah, so I'm in this. So this is well, I've simplified it a bit, but I basically just copied and paste what we call our scorecard. So this is every Monday. Monday morning is our stat meeting. Wednesdays are our team training on procedures. But Monday's team meeting, it is all about where we are at that point. So after the end of last week, what do the numbers look like based on goals? Where are we moving forward? So our shift is from 7:30 to 10:30. Patients should be clear of the office by 10:45, and meeting starts at 11. We always start with growth moment. So it's 5 minutes. It's of something on principle. If we're doing something like a book with the office, someone's responsible for it's 5 minutes of, okay, so we read this chapter. These are the big pieces I took from this, or this is something we should be looking at for our patients, or this is a communication piece, whatever that is. Or if we are on our rocks for the quarter, it might be something that's needed a training for a rock to get accomplished that shows up, and basically it goes through each team member. So it might be like myself, Chari, Maria, Camille, Dimple, Drew, like et cetera, goes through in an order. But someone, if they got something else they need to share, something that's important, they can always steal it from someone else. Just got to let them know before. So there's 5 departments in the office, and this would be the same for every office. I'll go through what we keep in them, but there's the new patient or conversion. Sorry, there's his conversion. There's then the new patients. There's then patient visits, the volume piece, the re-sign, and the financial department. So with this, everything we always go through the code. So cause over condition, heroes grow here, make it better, numbers matter, that type of thing. So we have 7, 8 codes for the office. So it's always got to be based on what code did I use last week. So every department has that to bring a bit of like this can get very admin-y heady because you're talking about numbers, but bringing it back to the root reason as to why we're talking about it. So we have a timekeeper, as you'll notice. You have 3 minutes to report your department, because at the bottom of this, then we have an issues list of things that we have to solve going into the week, whatever that is below this. I won't cover that today, but the stat piece, like you should be able to get through the stat piece, these 5 departments in about 15 to 20 minutes max. So what we look at here then, so in the conversion department, it's your conversion between this. So I have another sheet here just because some people they think someone's coming. So how we keep accurate stats is my kind of rule of thumb. If you are using like external marketing, Facebook, Google ads, stuff like that, my number from the prospect day 0 to day 1 used to be 90%. Using external marketing, it's definitely lower. So we've gone down to 80%. The people getting from day 1 to day 2, we like to see 90. Day 2 to day 3, we like to see 90. And then the day 3 people, 80% of them just had a care plan. So how we track this, I just kind of made like a fake new patient log here. So we have 3 aspects of new patients in the office. They're either a referral of some sort. They come from Gotcha Locals, our Google ads, and then we have our Facebook marketing. So basically, looking at this, so in the first 2 weeks, there's 3 internal referrals that we had. 2 have made it in, one's coming. So it's just a math thing. We do 2 plus 1. As long as they're scheduled, we're assuming they're moving forward. And it helps you track your stats properly. So when it comes into something like this, so for in the month, if it was 29, 21 made it. This is yellow because we got to talk about it because we got an issue. We fell below the 80%, right? So this is my department, so I would talk about it. And this one, I'm like, hey, so here's where we are for the month. There's 2 issues we're seeing. We're getting a lower show rate from people who book who make it to day 1. And I would look at where it is. Like it might be like, hey, like only 50% of our Facebook people made it in, or hey, of our referrals, we're only getting 60% of the referrals. And it's going to come down to, are we getting a hot button, like going through the pieces we're supposed to have? And usually that's something that sticks out. And it's like, okay, so moving forward for this week, this is what we're going to focus on, because the goal is you cover it every week, because your monthly goal is your monthly goal, and you have to be correcting week by week to hit that. The other one in this example here is the people getting to day 3 from day 2. So 9 had made it, 7 were scheduled, but it was only an 80%, so we're low. So we had a gap. We had a gap, and we'd want to figure out what that is to close it. Okay. The next one is then we look at just total number of new patients. So the key with new patients is you want to have a goal, and you want to know also where they are coming from. So what it looks like in the week. So if we look at a week like what January would be, just because the first week there was like what 1 or 2 days, just the way the New Year's fell. So how does that fall out? Because there's an external event, we're expecting week 3 to be a big new patient week, right? So you plan it out based on what's in your marketing calendar. Because what I find is a lot of people, when it comes to new patients, make this goal, but there's no real plan as to how it's getting accomplished, right? So you want to be really specific. What's the goal? Where are you at? How's it supposed to fall in for the week? For planning wise, I like to shoot 20% over. So if you miss 1 week, it doesn't mean the whole month shot, but you're making a plan. So for instance, like in week 2, the goal was for 10, only hit 7. We know where they came from. So then what has to happen these next 3 weeks to make sure it's going to work, right? If that makes sense to everybody. Um, as a rule of thumb, we got bad with this through COVID, as I'm sure everyone else did as well. We went from a very internal driven office to much more of an external driven office. And the reality is you don't have a lot of control when it's external driven. So of this 40 goal, like the goal in this is 24 of those 40 are coming from internal sources. So we like to have like a 55, 60% got to be direct referrals, and the rest can be from the outside. The other things we talk about in the new patient department. So these are all metrics that you look at as to what drives new patients. So it is the events you have, things like that. So you also want to be tracking it. So is there a workshop coming up? If there is, what's the sign up for that? If there's a dinner, whatever that is, you're tracking these because this is what produces new patients, whether it be engaged patients who are on fire for the mission that gives you referrals, or people bring guests and they get a chance to sign up. You like what are the things that generate new patients for your office are the metrics you should be tracking in the new patient department. For me, the outreach CA is who reports this. So for us, that's Marie in our office. So I report this first one. I'm in charge of conversion. But our outreach person who manages events, who does all the Facebook calls, who does, all like she's the NCA. She discusses this. Patient visits. So what we look at, there's a couple different markers. It's what our actual volume is. We have what's called our 14-day list. This is a printout we get from Atlas. Any software you have can have it. It's basically patients who haven't been in the last 14 days. Our goal in this is we do have some patients that are every 3 weeks, stuff like that. We have some pay per visit patients that come, but they're not really on a schedule. So we have decided that when we look through the numbers, that we're comfortable with 45 people being on that list. If it's any bigger, we have a problem and people are falling through the cracks. That's why we track the number. So you can see right now we're good. The other one we look at then in total visits is we look at our show rate. So our show rate for the week, other people might do it like miss cancels, reschedules. Being in a big city, we do get quite a bit of reschedules. And I stopped being rigid and stopped caring about it. As long as you get in during the week, I don't really care. But there has to be communication now that we got like Review Wave and a booking app and people can move their schedules with less admin time. That might be different for your office. So you might want to track canceled, missed reschedules. But for us, if 95% of the week gets adjusted, we're comfortable with that. It means we're doing a good job. If that number falls below, now something's off, that's a yellow flag for us. There's people who either are having a struggle with their schedule, people are getting sick and don't know they should be getting adjusted to boost their immune system, like those pieces. And it gives us talking points that we need to be having with patients if they're struggling with schedule, if they're looking at rescheduling, or talking points we want on the TV as far as education for patients. So we always look at the 14-day list, the volume, what was last week, what's booked for the future week as well. So we're always kind of looking 3 weeks at a time. Resign department, it's all about resign. So a volume piece here. So this is one thing that a lot of clients, if your volume is like you want to be at 300 a week, for instance, the number you're looking for is between starts and between resigns, you need to have 30 a month, right? So for us, our goal's around like 450. So we want between starts and resigns, the goal is to have 20 starts and 25 resigns in this month. That gives us 45, right? So that's what that number is. So if you're looking for numbers and you're trying to figure out what it is, resigns. So in the resign department, the things we look at is the total number of people up. We want 90% of them to re-sign a care plan. This kind of tells us what the goal is. So there's 28 total on the re-sign list. We want 25 of them to re-sign. 18 have already done it. There's still 10 more coming. The question I have with my tech who runs this, because they run all the re-exams, is of those 10, is there any concerns? Another thing we look at then is testimonies and reviews. And the reason we track this, if people are sharing good news about themselves in a testimony or in a review, those are people who are going to stick around. So we're looking for those. So we like a testimony a week, which a lot of times, most times I'll be completely candid with you guys. If you're not getting at least a testimony a week, it's because you're not asking for it or you're not looking for it. Anytime our number falls, it's like, how many did you ask for this week? None, right? It's because we get, and the longer you've been in it, the harder it gets. You expect the good news, you stop asking, right? And the big thing you want to think about this when you're asking for testimonies, you're giving those people a chance to celebrate their win. So we look at testimonies and then reviews. Review Wave sends out the piece for us. But if we're getting good reviews, we're doing a good job. Again, those are people who are going to stick around. That's why we track those. The other piece we look at in here is total active patients. And then what we call the side door, it's people who've left care. Could have been people who moved away, stopped for whatever reason. But we know we want less than 3 people on our side door a month. If it's bigger than that, there's something up, and it's usually coming down to a re-exam issue. What we look at the monthly re-sign, these are people who we call it a 9-month conversation. So we do a re-sign typically 3 months before their care plan's up. So we have the conversation early. Most people sign a care plan before their current care plan ends.
Hey, Brian, can I just interject for a second here? And hey guys, this is interesting too, and I know we've talked about this many times in the idea of testimonies, so testimonials. We had a camera set up 24/7 in the corner of a private consultation room. And every time it was, and we talked about this in huddle, and we actually targeted. So this was part of our regular huddle talk. Who can we target on the day sheet today for a testimonial? Who's doing really well? Who's been talking about their progress so far? Or and here's the other thing is that so anytime that they had a positive comment or something, or we'd have that name on our radar, we would ask them to go in the other room and turn the camera on and do a video testimonial. And we were collecting them like seriously multiple times a day. But here's the other thing we did, and this was really a huge win, was my sister went through cancer treatment, right? So she went through chemo, and obviously she lost her battle back. This is going back a long time ago, but I remember her going to chemotherapy, and they had this big giant bell, obviously, that people would ring when they finished their course of chemo, and it was a big celebration. And I thought, why don't we have one of those in the office? So I actually bought a bell and we hung it up in the office. And anytime somebody had a great re-exam or got a good adjustment, we would have a big sign up, hey, ring the bell. And it happened on a daily basis to the point where our staff actually got annoyed with it because it was quite loud. But and one of our staff actually took some tape and put it around the clacker of the bell, the donger of the bell, so it would go instead of ding ding ding. But it was actually quite funny. But it created this energy, and every time somebody rang the bell, hey, did you get that on video? Did we get a testimonial? So to collect those is a great idea. To have the system set up, then it just becomes second nature.
And the biggest thing Colin said there, it's being intentional about it. Because if you're not like, I think sometimes people don't ask for them because you feel you're asking for you. Patients, they want to celebrate their wins. There's not many spots in their life they get to celebrate what's going well for them. And this is an opportunity for them not only celebrate what's going well for them, but to be an inspiration for someone else who doesn't know if they're going to get there, right? So they get to step into that leader role. In our experience, or mine personally anyway, when you ask people, like 90% of people get a big smile on their face. They're like, yeah, I'd love to share my story, right? The one piece I would say though is watch with your team. We used to do paper ones, and my team used to default to that because it's easy. It's like, hey, could you fill out the testimonial form? I'm telling you, you're giving your people homework, and like 10% of them are coming back. So whether it's a video, like ideal, obviously in this day and age is a video. If someone isn't comfortable being on video, hit just voice record on your phone and have a conversation with them, and you can turn that into a text one, but don't give them homework. Capture the moment when they're excited about it. Moving on, the last one then is our collection department. So for us, so figure out what your collection goal should be. It's basically what your average patient volume goal is for the month, timed by this is collection per visit. So we average collecting $53 per visit times the 4 weeks, so a $92,000 goal. Projected what collected so far. So in this example here, it's 49. So the pieces we look at is what's the goal, what's collected, what's still coming, and then we also, a big one to track is pre-authorizations. So these are the ones that you're basically guaranteed to get for the month. So most of you who do plans, there, unless it's outside of the lump sum, there is some sort of monthly. Definitely when you get into wellness plans or lifetime plans, it's a set monthly installment. The goal for this is like figure out what yours is now, and then figure out which way it's going, and figure out where you want to go. I'm going to suggest a goal is figure out what your office expenses are, what it costs to pay everyone to be in your office, take a base salary for you, and whatever that number is, this should be your goal for pre-authorizations, right? So it covers all your expenses. So then anything else is strictly profit, if that makes sense to everybody. That's a good way to set a pre-authorization goal. What we do in products, so we're mainly home care kits. We do a little bit of supplements. And then the other one we track here is accounts receivable. Because we do have a lot of people on plans, our accounts receivable, the metric we use is basically 2 months of collections in receivables. If it goes higher than that, we know that there's people who are off their plans, have missed installments, etc. So
That's
those are
awesome.
now you can have more metrics in here. These are the ones that we use. you want to look at each department. So you have a collection department, you have a re-sign department, you have a volume department, you have a new patient department and a conversion department. And you want to have somewhere between 2 to 3 things that you measure inside of there to tell you how that department is going. Any
So
questions on that? Could I ask how many people um, actually run by department right now in their office?
I do.
Okay. So about 3? Because it's a huge piece. If you're not, um, you likely don't know what's going right or wrong in the office until it's already really wrong. Um, or you're taking way too much of the responsibility and not developing future leaders inside of your office. So I'd encourage you be looking at that. When I've been through it, like there's 5 departments in every office. Look at what the metrics you feel drive that. I described some of ours as to why they are that. And then it becomes very easy and you're tracking it. And the simple conversation is, so I have in the 15 minutes between shift and when it starts, I have a quick 2 to 5 minute meeting with each person who's a department leader. And it's just basically, how's your department going? Do you have any challenges or questions you have for me before we go into meeting? Because they're presenting it to team.
that's fantastic. Awesome. Brian, thank you very much for sharing that. So clearly that's very advanced, you guys. And obviously Brian comes from a team of, including yourself. What is your team? 6 people?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dr. Pat, your team, including yourself, how many people in your office? He's
Gonna
got to
count.
count on his fingers. 7,
7.
6, 7. Okay, so 7.
6 or 7.
Thank you.
I don't know. I never
So
count.
here's the thing. So that's but let's break this down and make this very simple because many of you are not keeping stats at all. So let's try to make this very simple. And I got a couple things to share with you to just get you started. So for those of you on the line who are not doing this at all, here's an easy way to get started. So first of all, I got 2 forms for you that I'm going to share in our chat, and you can share them, download them, ask for requests for them, so you can actually download them. And these are things that we kept in our office. So this is very simple. So first of all, so you absolutely need to dedicate somebody who is 100% committed to keeping these stats, and it can't be the doctor. This is not something that's in your bandwidth. So you need to appoint a staff member to do this. Even if you're a single doc, single staff office, it's not hard to keep track of. So this first sheet is a
So
new patient
if I can
tracker.
give one point in that call and you can tell the details on this. So how it runs in our office is whoever books the new patient puts them on the new patient track. And for us, it's a new patient log, but in Colin's example, new patient tracker, they put down their name, where they came from, whether it's Facebook, Gotcha Local, a patient, their name, right? And like if it's their brother, their friend, their spouse, whatever, and then the date that they're booked for. And then all it is after that, we put down, if it's a 1 doc office, put down an X. If it's a multi-doc office, we just put down the initial of the doctor who saw them for day 1, day 2, day 3. But it's
So
simple.
yeah, keep it simple. So and to make this very simple, so when in our office we actually had this printed out. So it was on a clipboard. Diana kept it. It was on a clipboard. She would bring it to every huddle, every staff meeting. She had it under her arm basically all day. And if she wasn't with a patient, because she was our tech CA, she had it under her arm the whole time. So she knew exactly where every single person was at any time you could ask her, and it was up to date. So it was a living document. You can do it digitally if you have a bigger team and you're sharing it amongst people. So make 3 or 4 people sharing the same document and they can all edit it. But very simple. So you just basically keep the names of every single person that makes an appointment in your office. This is not necessarily even the day ones. These are every single person that makes an appointment. The source is where they came from. So that's Facebook or referral, or they came from one of your external events. And remember, there's 4 places where people come from, right? There's internal organic leads, which are referrals, or they come from just something that happens internally in your office. There's an internal paid event. So if you had like a catered dinner or something inside your office, or an event that you actually paid for, brought in a guest speaker, whatever the case. So that's an internal. There's external organic, where you're going out to do a talk at a place and it doesn't cost you anything other than your time. And then there's external paid, which is your Facebook or your Google marketing and things like that, or you're doing a lunch and learn, you're actually buying lunch. So there's 4 places where those people come from. So you're keeping a list of every single person that makes an appointment, where they came from, and then the day, the appointment time, right? The appointment time, and then did they actually show up? So did they make it to day one? And you'd write the date down beside their name. Did they make it to day two? You'd write the date down. You'd make the day three. And then as you keep this list, and at the end of the month, you go through and track all of these names that made it from day one to day two to day three, and you're going to start to see patterns, and you see where they start to drop off. Like, if only 50% actually made it to day two, so 50% of the names actually have a date in day two, there's a problem, obviously, getting them from either appointment to day one or day one to day two. And you can start to break down where our systems breaking down, or if the drop off is to day three, or sign ons, or whatever the case is. So this was a document that we kept all the time. So very simple. I'll share this in the chat. You can print it off, you can use it digitally, whatever you choose to do. The second one, and this is a more advanced one, this is our monthly stat log, where we would actually keep track of all of the day ones that came in. So after you fill out your new patient tracker, if you had, let's say you had 30 people show up for day one, you would write down 30 in the day one column. And I can show you how this calculates some neat stats here. So if I had 30 patients come in for day one, and let's say out of those 30, only, let's see, 25 of them went to day two, and then out of the 25, so many made it to day three, right? So again, we're tracking our stats here. So let's say only 18 made it to day three. And then I would write down our total collections for the month. So let's just say, for example, it's 50,000, right? So there's our total collections. It automatically calculates my LTV. Well, what's my LTV? Well, that's my lifetime value of a patient. Remember, that's a relative number. So I had 50,000 in collections. I had 30 day ones. So if I divide 30 into 50,000, that means every new patient is worth about $1,666. Again, it's a relative number. So remember, that's a sign of how long those people are staying. So if they stay longer in your office, LTV goes up. If they only stay a short time, generally, LTV goes way down. So it gives you an idea of how much each new patient is worth to you. And again, from a marketing perspective, then you start to know, you start to realize now, if I can go down here and say, okay, well, if I spent $1,500 to a marketing company and $1,500 in ad spend, then I've spent 3,000, and you can add in your lunch and learns, and you can add in any other paid advertising into that number. And this divides my number of new patients to the $3,000 that I spent on advertising. And this says it costs me $100 per new patient. So it's a really neat thing to start to calculate. If it's costing me $100 to get a new patient in the office, but every new patient's worth $1,600, then that's a pretty darn good return. And if I'm not as busy as I want to be, I'm going to increase my ad spend. I'm going to increase my money paid for advertising because I'm getting great return on my ad spend. So it's a great way to start to calculate, do I have the resources to grow? Do I have the capacity to grow? So this is a neat stat, and you can keep it month to month, average it out over time, and see where the patterns are. So you can have these sheets and use them as you choose. Okay, but that's a great way to get started.
But I would recommend, like what I did for this one, I just put an Excel sheet, but where Colin has it in a Google sheet. That's how all of ours is done, because it's obviously the team has access to the scorecard. The team has access to our re-sign log, our new patient log, etc. So when it comes to Monday meeting, we just cast it onto the TV screen, and then we just talk through it as a team.
You guys have any questions or comments, any challenges that you're having with regard to keeping stats? So I would encourage you, just if you don't do this on a regular basis, if it's not a system in your office. Oh, and here, let me tell you this too. So I am working with a client who's not in this group, who is in the process of purchasing a practice. And he's purchasing a practice of a doc who's been in practice for almost 40 years. So it's an older practice, been established for a long time. And Brian brought this up earlier, that was one of the questions I asked. I said, how much is the monthly recurring revenue of the office? Because a valuation of your office is highly greater when you have a high monthly recurring revenue. So in other words, are patients on care plans? Do they pay a regular monthly fee, and are they coming in regular? And so the answer was, so he didn't know what that meant. And we talked about, he's just a young doc. And okay, so fine. We talked all through it and talked about the reason why it's valuable. And he went and asked the doc, and he said, no. He said, nobody's on a care plan. They all pay as you go. Well, immediately the value of that practice goes down. And so when we go in with an offer for this practice, the offer is much lower based on that. One of those, that's one of the criteria, one of the stats. So if you want to value your practice in a higher value, start making sure that the majority of your patients are on care plans, because the valuation of your office will significantly go up as a result of that.
Well, it's also stable too. Like, so for you to do any planning, like you want to add like advanced rehab, right? So if you're going to be buying a bunch of stuff, do you have the bandwidth to do that? Not just doing it on a prayer where most people do. You actually know, okay, this is what I'm guaranteed to come in. We're doing this, and it helps you map out and make plans better too.
Not to mention it locks people in. Like it's a mentality thing. Like they're committed. Not a lot of people cancel their gym membership. They use their gym membership because they're paying. They use chiropractic on a regular basis because they're paying. It quenches the thought of perhaps stopping or quitting.
Well, it becomes part of the monthly budget. I'm very open with patients when it comes to our lifetime plans. I'm like, we wanted to make something work that the fee wouldn't change, and you're able to get chiropractic care for the rest of your life. So it becomes like your cable bill, and it's just part of your normal monthly budget. And we're going to set it, and our commitment to you is that it won't change as long as you maintain your plan. Right. So it's like we don't have re-sign conversations with anyone who's in a second plan or more, unless they bring it up and they're into a financial issue or they're moving or something like that. It's just this is your routine. We do all the re-exams and everything. We have care conversations, but we have no more plan conversations.
Any other questions, you guys?
Hang on, there's some coming in chat.
I know Christine's got a couple messages in the chat. I love the idea of a lifetime plan.
How many docs were? 4 docs or sorry, 2 docs, 4 team.
I have a question. So when you're trying to set up these care plans, what does that look like in terms of from a new patient that just walks through your door? So they come through your door, you do your day 1, your day 2, your day 3, then you put them on a care plan for what, 10 visits, 30 visits? How does it work kind of from the start?
That's
From
a
the
great question.
start, it would,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Brian.
from the start, it would be correction. So it really depends on the level of correction you're in. In our office, for most people, it's going to be somewhere between 30 and 40 adjustments over 4 to 6 months. It includes advanced rehab, so it's sticker price of somewhere around $3,000. And then after that, they're into some sort of wellness care, typically either once a week or every 2 weeks. And that's where it becomes just a monthly recurring amount. At the beginning, though, they're shown a care plan as to this is the value of the care because of administrative savings. They're not making a payment every time. It saves them time, but it saves the team time. That's where the savings come from. We give them their home care kit at cost. Slight discount on the adjustments. I think it's a 2% discount on the adjustments, but we include all the x-rays, re-exams, and I think they get 25% off the advanced rehab stuff. So it saves them like $1,500 to be on a plan. And then we give them 3 different options: pay it all up front, lump sum, additional 10% off, 30% down, spread the rest over monthlies on how many months the plan is, or a smaller down and spread over monthlies.
So, and first of all, so Dr. Graham is new to our group here. So first of all, everybody, welcome Dr. Graham. He's in Calgary. And Dr. Graham's a professional squash player, by the way. Pretty darn fit guy. He is actually, or actually Graham. So here's the big thing is that, and we're going to talk about this in our coaching calls, but the biggest thing and what Brian alluded to there is that there has to be some criteria that you have for that patient of what you're trying to accomplish in that care plan. So the care plan is the idea of what you're trying to help the patient accomplish. So it has to tie into some sort of objective finding or objective change. And we'll talk about this. So to try to encourage a patient to go on a care plan without justification of some objective change is really a challenge. Like patients, well, why should I be on a care plan if, like, I don't know why why do I have to come 3 times a week for 12 weeks, or why do I have to come weekly for the next 6 months, or whatever the care plan entails. There has to be some justification there that you can show them what we're trying to accomplish, and that's what we'll talk about.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome, Graham, as Dr. Justine. Just wanted to say, if you're using the lifetime plans, to be cautious that as the fees go up, the fees continue to go up. I made the mistake of lifetime plans starting, maybe over 15, maybe even 15 plus years ago, where my fees per adjustment were only like $36 and $38 an adjustment. So then if they had their discount and they maintained it 15 years later, when I'm charging $60 an adjustment, now they're getting like over 40% off. So for my new lifetime plans, because you don't want to stop those people who've been coming once a week for 15 years, but now they're paying 40% less. I'm paying an adjusting doctor more than they're actually paying to come in. So I did make that error. And so now if I do a lifetime plan, then I make sure that it's adjusted for fee increases along the way. They will maintain their discounts and maintain their monthly amount. But if, for example, my fees just changed from $58 to $60, that $2 change would continue to happen. And it doesn't make a difference in 1 to 5 years. But when you've been in practice for 25 years and you have everybody on a lifetime plan, it does start to make a difference.
And that's where you gotta, as far as stats go, you really got to track your cost per visit and your collection per visit.
Yeah.
Because we increase heavily on new people coming in, new resources. Now our existing patients can get access to the advanced rehab. They pay for it like everyone else would. It's the fee's the fee. But I do have people, Justine, that are 20 years. And how I justify it, and this again, this is a personal decision, but you got to track: is this profitable or not? Does this make sense? So this this is a good conversation for like family plans. Like because I just arbitrarily, when I first started in care or started in practice, I just arbitrarily had family plans and had no idea that for the last 2 I was losing money on, right? It wasn't even breaking even. If you can get where your long-term patients, which are people who've been 20 plus years, I look at it, they take 0 staff time. They show up for their appointments. They are not rescheduling. They buy supplements without having to come to workshops. They're just like, it's just, we collect the fee on a regular basis, and they're almost 0 work. But we track it with our cost per adjustment, our collection per adjustment, to make sure as an office that we're healthy. But those people have been around a long time. You're 100% right, Justine. They are getting a healthy discount. But for some of them, it's what allows them to stick around too. My personal thing is I hate having the re-sign conversation if I don't have to. Part of it's because I'm not in the office as much, so some other team aren't as good at it as I am, just with experience. So watch as to how you're doing it. But if you have a low fee right now, I wouldn't set a lifetime plan at that, because you'll lose your shirt at the end of it.
Well, and you could easily do this too, is your lifetime plan is a set discount. And if they continue as a patient, they're on a special lifetime membership fee, and maybe it's 10 or 15% less than your regular adjustment fee. And as your regular adjustment fee goes up, their plan consistently goes up, but it's always 10 or 15% less until they quit. And that's the caveat, is that you encourage them to say, listen, as long as you stay as a patient and you're constantly re-signing, we're going to keep you on this lifetime plan. But as soon as you quit, you would go back to the regular fee as a patient. So it's an encouraging thing to say, okay, it's worthwhile for me to stay in there. And the other thing too is that don't look at it, and this is more for Justine too, you can't look at it as if you're losing money unless you're at full capacity. In your case, obviously, you're probably at full capacity, or maybe even over full capacity, because you're you're constantly busy when you're there. For most of the docs on the line, you're not busy 100% of the hours that you're in the office. You know, there's times where you're standing around. So it's okay to give a discount to encourage more people, more volume to come in. So, you know, so you got to think of it that way too. You're only starting to lose money if you're turning away full paying patients and taking a discounted patient. This is good, guys. This is a great call. Hopefully that helps. I will share the those spreadsheets in the chat. What you're going to have to do, because they're restricted for our partner group, you will have to ask for request for them to get them to share them and actually download them or put them on your own Google Docs so you can actually use the formulas and use them as a live document, or you can just print them off and use them as a printed sheet. Any other questions before we depart? Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, everybody. Love you guys. Have a good one, and we'll talk next week.
Bye,
Cheers.
everybody.